If you drive through the English Midlands today, you might see something strange. A lone, crumbling church tower standing in the middle of a massive empty field. There are no houses for miles, no roads nearby, and no sound but the wind whistling through the hollow stones. You aren't looking at a mistake in architecture or an eccentric ruin. You are looking at the last surviving lung of a dead village. Across England, there are over 3,000 of these ghost villages, known to historians as deserted medieval villages, or DMVs. These were once thriving hubs of peasant life, filled with the smell of wood smoke, the rhythm of the blacksmith's hammer, and the shouts of children. Now, they exist only as bumps in the grass or faint lines on a satellite map. We often imagine the medieval world as a static, unchanging era, but these ruins tell a different story. A story of a slow-motion car crash involving economics, a changing climate, and a predatory social system. Today, we go barefoot on dirt to peel back the turf and uncover why 3,000 communities simply vanished from the face of the earth. For centuries, these villages were nothing more than local legends or haunted fields. But today, we have a way to see the invisible. Archaeologists are using LiDAR, light detection and ranging, to strip away the vegetation with millions of laser pulses. When we look at a ghost village through LiDAR, the earth begins to speak. We see rectangular ripples in the turf, the foundations of medieval peasant houses. But look closer at those ripples. That isn't just a foundation. That was a threshold. That was where a mother stood to watch for her husband returning from the fields. That dark patch near the door, that was the hearth, the only source of warmth for a family of 6 during a brutal January. These houses were built of wattle and daub, mud, straw, and sticks. They were organic, born from the dirt, and when they failed, they returned to the dirt. LiDAR reveals that these villages weren't just random clusters of huts. They were highly organized machines for survival, machines that eventually broke. To understand the failure, we have to look at the medieval warm period between 950 and 1250. The sun was kind and the population boomed. People became overconfident. They began building villages on marginal land, high hills or heavy clay soils that were normally too difficult to farm. Then the world changed. Around the year 1300, the Little Ice Age hit. Imagine the reality inside one of these huts. The thatch roof is leaking, the floor, just packed dirt, has turned into a cold black slurry of mud. You can hear your children coughing in the damp dark, a sound that doesn't stop for weeks. You look at your last bag of grain, knowing it has to last until spring, but the rain outside tells you there may be no spring this year. The soil they relied on turned to mud, and the nutrients were washed away. The density of these abandoned sites is highest in the Midlands and the East, where the heavy soil was most vulnerable. The people didn't just leave, they were defeated by the sky. The failure of a village was rarely just about the weather. It was about a predatory economic system. A medieval peasant lived with a razor-thin margin of safety. Every year, they were hit with the feudal squeeze. 10% of everything went to the church as a tithe. The rest was drained by manorial dues and royal taxes to pay for distant wars. Most villages were locked into crop dependency, specifically grain. They had no plan B. When the harvests failed during the Great Famine of 1315, peasants were forced into a desperate choice. They had to eat their seed corn, the very grain saved for next year's planting. Think about the weight of that moment. A father sitting at a scarred wooden table, looking at the grain meant for the future, realizing that to keep his children alive tonight, he had to sacrifice their tomorrow. Once the seed was gone, the village was a dead man walking. The community collapsed under the weight of its own debt and hunger. If you want to see the face of a ghost village, you look at Warham Percy in Yorkshire. It was inhabited for 6 centuries, surviving the Romans, the Saxons, and even the Black Death. But its end didn't come from a plague. It came from the price of wool. When archaeologists began to dig into the mud here, they found the intimate debris of heartbreak. Deep in the soil of a collapsed cottage, they unearthed a tiny, crude bird made of baked clay. It was a child's whistle. Imagine the day the eviction notice arrived. The Lord's men are at the door. You are being forced out so that sheep can graze where your family has lived for 6 generations. In the chaos of packing what little you can carry, a child drops their favorite toy. It slips into the mud, unnoticed, as you are marched away. That whistle stayed there, silent in the dirt, for 500 years. It is a haunting physical scream of a life interrupted. By the 15th century, the great bovine takeover was complete. Humans were replaced by sheep because sheep didn't demand wages, and sheep didn't starve in the rain. The village was deleted to maximize profit. Not all ghost villages are under the grass. Some are under the waves. Dunwich, once a prosperous seaport, was a rival to London. It had a dozen churches and a bustling market, but Dunwich was built on a crumbling cliff. Today, almost the entire city has disappeared into the North Sea. If you walk along the shingle beach today, it is still possible to pick up small artifacts and bones from the eroding medieval cemetery in the cliffs above. You might find a copper pin that once held a woman's shawl, or a tooth from a man who spent his life fishing these waters. These aren't just finds, they are pieces of people being reclaimed by the sea, a palpable sense of absence. The 3,000 ghost villages of England are a haunting reminder that our permanent settlements are actually quite fragile. They failed because they were part of a system that was too rigid, too specialized, and too focused on the short-term profit of the elite. When the climate shifted and the social contract broke, the villages vanished. When we walk through these empty fields, we are walking over the ghosts of families who thought their world would last forever. They remind us that when we lose our diversification and our margin of safety, we are only a few bad seasons away from becoming ghosts ourselves. The dirt remembers, and eventually, the dirt takes everything back. Thank you for walking with us. This is Barefoot on Dirt.